The popular Pat Forde, one of the great college football writers in America, senior writer for Sports Illustrated, back on the program. I came up with this stupid idea yesterday, Pat. I thought the Pac-12 is bordering on being irrelevant this season and maybe in future seasons. Why not play games on Wednesday night? Like own a day so people are watching your product, commenting on your product. It's like when you play Thursday night, you may be a bad football team, but people are seeing the Giants on Thursday night play against, the Buccaneers or the Patriots. Why can't, playing at 9 a.m. local time, West Coast, is that kind of the game plan?
Well, I think they're looking at all options right now because they are in a difficult situation. But the one thing, Dan, that I think the Pac-12 would have to get its arms around is saying, we're not as good as the other Power 5 conferences, so we have to go to a gimmick. And that's hard from an ego standpoint and a prestige standpoint to say, yeah, we're now at the point we got to schedule like the MAC and like the Sun Belt and look for another night to play or another day to play. If you're right, though, if you look like the Friday night games, the Big Ten has started to put one game on Friday night. The ACC has had some Friday night games. Those get attention. Those get a lot of commentary. I think that Friday for sure, although it impinges on high school sports and you kind of that gets a little tricky, but I think Friday is a viable option. Thursday, yes, although you're butting up against the NFL on Thursday nights. I think going forward, as people try to recoup tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue, they're going to be looking at all options.
Did the selection committee at least do a drive-by with an 8-team playoff at any point this year?
I don't know if they have. They've kept it under the lid, so to speak. Certainly this would have been a year to try to break the mold and say, what can we do here to have a more meaningful playoff, more inclusive, and more lucrative. I don't know whether they ever actually seriously considered it. To the best of my knowledge, no. If they did, they didn't acknowledge it. And that's these people. Well, the people that run the playoff are the people who run college football, the conference commissioners. They are so averse to change, as we know. It only took 145 years to have a playoff, so I'm not sure they're ready to go to 8 yet.
But there's money here. These athletic departments need the money. If you said to Greg Sankey, all right, you may not get Georgia in this year, but you're going to have Alabama, and if we do 8, you could get Texas A&M in there as well. You might get a Pac-12 team like Oregon, BYU could get in, Cincinnati could get in. To me, it's good for college football. Why would somebody vote against this?
Yeah, well, especially you're right that if you're the Pac-12 or the Big 12 and you're figuring to be left out, I would be banging on the table every day for an expanded playoff. Here's the thing: was this year, obviously, the calendar being what it was, and the Big 10 starting late and the Pac-12 starting late, they're basically out of weeks. And you go to the TV folks and you say, okay, well, can we just push everything back and have a bigger playoff? They're going to say no, because then you're getting in the way of the NFL playoffs, and we care more about the NFL playoffs than we care about the college playoffs. So I think that was basically, they ran out of TV inventory real estate, so to speak, this year. Now, in the future, I'm with you. If I'm in one of these conferences that is habitually being left out, my job every day as commissioner would be, let's expand the playoff.
How concerning is it that you have these postponements in the SEC this weekend?
Oh, it is. They were the league that it was obviously been the most gung-ho to play. They forged through the first 2 or 3 weeks with no problems, and they're going to keep going, but you're losing games and you're losing chances to reschedule games, and eventually there's probably going to be an impact on the conference standings and how things play out there. But you have lost 3 games this week. May still lose a 4th. We'll see. Missouri was making some noises about having some COVID issues that could possibly jeopardize their game against Georgia. So, it's catching up with everybody at some point in time. And it's just a question of what the impact is in terms of how the rest of the season plays out.
Wisconsin, Michigan still on, right?
Wisconsin, Michigan is still on. Wisconsin has come out of their hibernation, so to speak, and we'll see how many players they have. We'll see what they look like. It's been interesting. I did have a stat this week that teams that have had 2 or more weeks off actually have a winning record when they come back, 9-7. It has not been a real negative impact to have 2 weeks off.
How do you assess who's good?
That's the best question. I don't know. I mean, and that's the committee I wrote about this. It's going to be a lot of look test, I think. And that's why, like, I look at BYU. I think BYU is very good. Their competition hadn't been that great, but you say, I know a good team when I see one. Do they deserve a shot? Well, maybe, maybe not. Well, Wisconsin, okay, you're going to play 6 games. Is that enough of a metric? Coastal Carolina's undefeated. Marshall Liberty, all those teams, do they deserve a shot? I don't know how you figure this out this year. I really, really don't.
And also, we have to hand out a Heisman, right? We have to.
We do.
Yeah. Can Trevor Lawrence still win the Heisman?
Sure. Yeah, I think he can. I mean, last year Chase Young was a finalist despite missing at least 1, maybe 2 games. I'm trying to remember. In a shortened season, it does matter, but he was really good when he was playing. If they come back and they run the table the rest of the way and he keeps playing the way he did, I expect him to be a finalist. I was going to say be in New York City, but I don't think they're probably going to have an actual ceremony in New York City. So, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence can still win the Heisman. Sure.
Can you see where Notre Dame joins the ACC full-time in football?
I think that they'll have some consideration on it after this year because it's been good for them.
Yeah.
It really has. It saved their season for one thing. And, it's brought a lot of attention to be in a conference race and to have that championship game it looks like they're going to make now at the end of the year. I think that it'll be under consideration. I still think that everything about Notre Dame and what they want to be will say, no, don't do it. But I wouldn't be shocked if Jack Swarbrick, the athletic director, is in there saying, this has been pretty good and pretty easy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here these next couple of weeks, trying to get to a Final Four. And, as a source told me about the Big Ten, it's trying to pass the sight test. Ohio State just wants to dominate here. And no matter who they're playing, just dominate. Wisconsin's not going to get that opportunity. And then you got Michigan now at 0-3. So that's not a quality win for an opponent. Yeah. Harbaugh's future there, with 1 more year left on his contract, would they cut ties a year early?
I don't think the school would. Maybe Jim would if he decides he wants to take another shot at the NFL. You look at his NFL record, it's pretty darn good. I would think, people may view him as damaged goods, but he's got a winning record in the NFL. And, there's some people employed there that are not as good as Jim Harbaugh. So I would think if he wants to go, if he finally just says, it's not going to happen, we're not going to return to glory, we're never going to beat Ohio State, I'm out of here, that might happen. I don't think Michigan would say, you're out. But we'll see. Things could still get worse. You lose to Wisconsin this week, you get pummeled by Ohio State at the end. There's plenty of losable games out there. That's the state of the Big Ten is so bizarre right now. Northwestern Purdue is like the big game of the weekend.
Can Indiana stay with Ohio State?
We'll see. I don't think they quite. I'm not sure their defense can hold up. Okay. I really like their team. They're fun. They throw it. They catch it. They can score. I'm just not sure defensively they can slow down Justin Fields and those receivers and the running backs.
It's amazing that we're talking about Indiana in a positive way.
Yeah, unprecedented.
Yeah. And I had a source who said, it's really an NFL scout who said, look, it's really hard to assess Ohio State quarterbacks because the talent is so great. And if you're looking at Dwayne Haskins, it's a 1-year, hey, what did you see there? Caldwell, what was it? Cardale Jones. And then and now you have Justin Fields there. Yep. Have you seen, hey, I know this guy's going to be really good here, and it's an Ohio State quarterback?
Yeah, no, that's a legitimate question. I think Justin Fields is very good. And look, I am not a scout, but I don't think he's as good as Trevor Lawrence. I'm not sure he's as good as Zach Wilson at BYU, who's really good and really fun. But that's the thing. The offense is so good. The scheme is great. The players around him are great. How much does he really have to do? We'll see. I thought he was very, very good for the most part, like against Clemson, when you're matched up against excellent talent, excellent coaching in a big game, but he had some turnovers in that game. Still, I think Justin Fields is certainly going to be a first-round pick. We'll see how high, but there is an element of, are we drafting a guy who everyone around him makes him look better than he is?
Good to visit with you, Pat. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time as always.
My pleasure, Dan. Thank you.
Pat Forde, senior writer covering college sports for Sports Illustrated.